Our next presentation is by one of my favorite sous viders. It's the food blogger behind A Duck's Oven and the author of Everyday Sous Vide. It's all French to me. She also has another upcoming book coming out very, very soon. She was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and has been food blogging for over 10 years. She spends most of her free time in the kitchen. Cooking became her stress outlet in college and remains that today. So please help me welcome Chelsea Cole, cookbook author and blogger at A Duck's Oven.
Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Cole. I am the food blogger behind A Duck's Oven and the cookbook author of Everyday Sous Vide, and coming out in just about a week and a half from this date, God willing, or from the date you're watching, will be my second cookbook, Sous Vide Meal Prep, which I am so excited about. I've been working my butt off on this cookbook all summer long. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen a lot of me, I'm going to call it behind the scenes, but really let's just say complaining. So today we are going to be talking about how to use sous vide to help with your meal prep process. So meal prep is relatively simple. Today we're going to be going over two kind of simple marinades and how you can use them in multiple ways, but I'm also giving you the recipe for one of my more fun and inventive marinades, so you'll be getting that too. So today we're going to be doing my black pepper rosemary marinade, which, as you can imagine, is great for a variety of things, especially steak, and my everything marinade, which also is great for everything. It better if it has that name, right? And then you'll be getting my gochujang coconut milk marinade as well, which I absolutely love. My favorite way to do that is with bone-in skin-on chicken thighs, but there are 1,000 ways you could use that. And that is largely what my cookbook is about. So the bulk of my cookbook is actually a large mix and match section that gives you an overview of I think about 14 different types of proteins, and then tons of marinades, rubs, sauces, compound butters, salsas, and more that you can pair with all of those different proteins. So the idea is you get a Costco haul. I literally did a Costco trip today. You can see some of the result of that, and then you get home and you prep it for your freezer in such a way that you can grab it from your freezer. It's already seasoned, it's already in a marinade, and you can put it right in your sous vide bath, or you've seasoned it, something I talk about in the book, super simply with just like salt and pepper, and you've got all these sauces ready, or sauces at the ready that you can make to finish off the dish and make it amazing. I have to give credit where credit is due. My mom is really the mastermind behind this technique. I watched her come home from Costco, or we have a great butcher by our house called The Meeting Place, and she would just prep and season all of this food at once, get it in the freezer, and then she was defrosting it before she would sous vide it. But I was like, I don't feel like this is necessary. So I go straight from the freezer to the water bath. And when I do that, I usually just have a different minimum amount of time I cook it. So for example, usually my minimum for steak or for chicken breasts would be an hour. When I am going from the freezer, my minimum is 2 hours. So it's just a slight difference in the amount of time, but not in the temperature. And the great thing about this too is typically the time it takes for your meat to freeze and for that kind of flavor infusion process to stop, because that's not going to really happen while it's frozen, is enough time to impart that flavor on the meat. So it all works out really well. All right, so let's get started. We are going to be using these two different marinades on ribeye, flank steak, bone-in skin on chicken thighs, and boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which I feel like are the ultimate meal prep cut. They have a reputation for being boring. We can make them a little bit more interesting, or at least I think so. So all of the recipes in my book are designed to work with about 1 to 1.5 pounds of meat. And then from there, you can double, triple, quadruple that quantity of all of the marinades, rubs, etc., depending on how much meat you are working with. And so we are working with about 2 pounds per recipe today. So I'm just gonna double the quantities for each of them. 1 cup of soy sauce. I'm just using regular soy sauce. I usually use Kikkoman, but you can use whatever floats your boat. 1/4 cup of olive oil. 2 sprigs of chopped fresh rosemary. 2 tablespoons of paprika. I like to use sweet paprika for this, but I think spicy would be great too. 2 tablespoons of chili powder. 2 tablespoons garlic powder, and 1 tablespoon of dried oregano. and a tablespoon of fresh cracked black pepper. Whisk it all up, and this is what it looks like. So I'm gonna do this marinade on the chicken breasts, flank steak, and one of the ribeyes. And I am lucky enough to have a chamber vacuum sealer, so that's what I'll be using today since there is so much liquid. But if you don't have a chamber vacuum sealer, just use a zipper top plastic bag. And then my favorite way to do liquid heavy things in a zipper top bag is the arm method, which consists of put everything in the bag, put the part of the bag just over your countertop that has food and liquid in it. Put your arm there, have a little slit in the top of the zipper bag, and then literally just move the other arm up to push as much air out as possible, which sounds fairly janky, but I promise you it actually works really, really well. And then seal that bag up and it's ready for the freezer or your water bath. My trick to pour a liquid into a bag is to put it in a jar like this. So I've just got the top of the bag folded over the jar, just because I don't feel like making a big mess today. So that's gonna be what we're doing. So I'm gonna pour approximately a third of this into the bag, and this bowl is amazing for this type of thing. I think I got it at Target a few years ago. I wish I had several. Putting a little more in this one than in the other two because I'll do the flank steak in this one, and there's just a little bit more of that. Well, it smells really, really good. And whenever I film videos like this, I'm like, I wish people could smell this because like you can smell the rosemary, you can smell the soy, and the paprika, and it just like you can like imagine how it's going to taste when you cook it. Okay, so you may have guessed that I would do this, but I'm gonna score the flank steak. So just dragging this paring knife not too far down in diagonal lines both ways, like this. I love flank steak. I think it's an underrated cut. I don't know. I grew up eating it all the time. It's one of my favorite things. I hope you guys love it as much as I do. And then just to help it better fit in this bag, I'm gonna cut it in half. And frankly, I am usually only cooking for two, and all of my cooking things are fairly small, so this will be easier to put in my cast iron skillet when I sous vide, or when I finish it after sous videing. So now I'm gonna seal it up, then I'll swish that marinade all around in there. Once it's sealed, I just find it's a little bit easier to do at that point, and then I'm gonna repeat with the other cuts I'm doing this with. Okay, so there you have it. I've got chicken breasts in the marinade, a ribeye, a big ribeye, and I know some of you will judge me for this, but typically my husband and I can just handle one ribeye. The ones from Costco are like insanely huge. And one flank steak ready to go. And so there are 3 different types of protein, but same marinade. They're gonna be different experiences when we cook them, and they're just gonna go in my freezer, and I don't have to think about what I'm gonna serve for dinner on any given night. I love to serve things in this marinade with corn on the cob. It's like, it feels kind of like a hearty, summery dish. You can finish, if you're doing steak in it, it's great to finish on the grill on super high heat. And then I also love to do it in a big salad. So I'll use some of the bag juices after it's done cooking as part of the dressing, along with some lime. I put a ton of mint in the salad, some cherry tomatoes. The proteins marinated in this just make a really, really good salad topper. Okay, so next up we're gonna make what I call my everything marinade. As the name implies, it's great with pretty much anything you marinate in it. It's got a lot of your classic marinade ingredients. This marinade will probably feel really familiar. And it's a great one when you come home with all kinds of crap and you can just like quadruple the batch and marinate a ton of stuff and have it ready to go. First up, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I am doubling this, just like the last one. 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. 1 tablespoon of dried basil leaves, 1 tablespoon of oregano, 2 teaspoons of crushed red pepper. If you really like spicy, you can play with this quantity, or if you don't like spicy at all, you can play with this quantity. 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, ½ teaspoon of black pepper, ½ cup of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons Worcestershire sauce. Someday I will be able to say it right on the first try. 2 tablespoons Dijon mustard, and mix. And this is what it's gonna look like. And then we're gonna repeat the process, divide the marinade and the meats between these 2 bags. For this marinade, I'm gonna be using one of the other ribeyes and bone-in skin-on chicken thighs. I have to pop in here. I forgot the lemon. Don't forget the lemon. And there you have it, protein for 5 different meals that took me almost no time at all. And the whole concept behind this is that you can bulk meal prep. So most weeks, hopefully all you're really doing is meal planning based on what's available in your freezer and then buying a few perishables. But most of the hard work was done in one big day 3 or 4 weeks ago, which is way better than having to do it every single week. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoy my new book, Sous Vide Meal Prep. I'm gonna put some photos up of the finished product versions of some of these marinades just so you can see what they look like when they're done. And so you're gonna be getting from me today 3 recipes from my upcoming cookbook. You're gonna be getting the everything marinade, the black pepper rosemary marinade, and the gochujang coconut milk marinade. And I hope you love all of them. And I hope that you get a chance to check out my new cookbook. And if, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. The best way is usually on Instagram. You can find me at A Duck's Oven. You can also email me, chelsea@aducksoven.com, and you can check out my blog, aducksoven.com. Thanks.
I always love seeing Chelsea's presentations. She does such a great job at explaining everything that she's doing and has such creative ways of packaging all the sous vide stuff. It's great having her involved in the ISVA, and she is here to come up on stage, answer some questions, get someone up here so I'm not here by myself, and someone that is much cooler than Mike. You know, it's a low bar, but we still like to acknowledge when it is surpassed. How's it going, Chelsea?
Good, how are you?
Doing very good. Great presentation. I appreciate you putting that together for us.
Yes, it was so fun. It was great to this was my first kind of thing where I'm not just talking to like a friend or family member about the book. So it was really fun to be able to kind of like run through it all and share my thought process for the whole time. So it was a blast.
What was your favorite recipe that you've come up with for this new book? Because you have so many amazing ones.
It's one of them has to be this one. Like I had all my recipes completely finalized for the book. And I made this on a whim, and I was like, I have to include this in the book because I love it so much. My husband and dad and brother fish like crazy, and they brought me home a ton of salmon. And I just kind of like looked at what was in my cupboard, and I had a spicy seasoning that I developed from the book, and I seasoned the salmon with that, sous vide it, and then broiled. And then I did a lemon brown butter dill sauce for it, and it was fantastic. It's really easy, and so that is one of them. And then I also like this, it just sounds delicious and it like works so well for the sous vide. So I'm sure everybody will understand, but artichoke dip stuffed chicken breasts that are wrapped in prosciutto and then served with cherry tomatoes and thyme. And that is definitely another one of my favorites, but I love a lot of them.
Nice. Yeah, I love your recipes that you have very good flavor combinations, but you keep them all simple so people can make them whenever they want. You know, I love me a good Chef Petranzik 8-day prep, extravaganza sometimes, but it's also like I want to eat occasionally after working. And I feel like your recipes, you focus on that. That's something that you pride yourself on, that your recipes are for everyday people that want to make great food that tastes amazing and not have to stress in the kitchen so long.
Totally. Yeah. One recipe I'm slightly guilty of making a little more complicated, but it's only for time, is short ribs, like braised boneless short ribs, and they are fantastic, and that's in the book too. Those take 48 hours, but I just like maintain that it's worth it.
Yeah, and sous vide's like so hands off that you can, it's not a big deal. Throw them
Yeah.
in, and then 2 days later you can worry about it then, or you can chill them and then heat them back up in an hour at any point in the future, which is great.
Totally.
Russell says, do you let it sit in the fridge for a while to let the salt go in, or do you freeze it right away?
Great question. So I've a few different responses for this. So one, typically, like the way I kind of envision people doing this is like literally coming home from a Costco haul. And so you're kind of like dealing with a ton of stuff at once. And so typically during that process, like I'll finish something, throw it in the fridge, finish something, throw it in the fridge, and then move that all to I have a big chest freezer on our first floor and just kind of do like one run. And so they will sit for a little bit during that time. In a perfect world, that is ideal to be able to let it sit in the fridge for like at least an hour or so to better let that flavor penetrate. For the home cook situation, like when I was envisioning this book, I'm thinking about somebody who is really busy either because they work or they're a parent or something like that. And so trying to keep it as simple as possible. And the one nice thing is, since you are going from room temperature, hopefully not quite, but like relatively warm to the freezer, it's still, the flavors are still going to have some time to penetrate before they're frozen, and that process kind of stops. So you're not completely losing that even if you go straight to the freezer, but obviously that's ideal.
Are there any vegetables that you use a lot for meal prep that hold up better to cooking?
Yeah. So there's actually several vegetable recipes in the book. And all of these can be frozen. So say you buy, like, I don't know, carrots in bulk or something like that. You can freeze them and then have them ready for sous vide. And so I love to use carrots. I use a bunch of green beans in the book. One thing that's been very interesting is different people's preferences with how these veggies are cooked. So there's like a little bit of playing with that. And asparagus too. I loved sous vide asparagus. Like, I, for a while, thought sous vide veggies were not a good use of my time. It's like I can make them fine without like taking up my water, without doing all these things. And then now I'm like, they're really good when I sous vide them though.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think you and I had this conversation probably like a year and a half ago that we're like, when do you use sous vide for vegetables? And we're both like, I don't know, when we do recipe testing, and that's about it. And I feel like, at least for me, there's Chef Petranzik hammering in my head to like stop just using it for meat, use it for vegetables all the time. And as I got into it a lot more, there's a lot of amazing things you can do with vegetables, which was a surprise for me since I'd been sous videing for 8 years or 9 years at that point.
Totally. And I am like such a big fan of having things in my freezer to complete a meal. So like I always have frozen ravioli, frozen sweet potato fries, frozen tater tots, like just like in case I'm like, I still want to cook tonight. I don't want to get takeout, but how do I make this easy on myself? And having those veggies in the fridge is one way to do that. Like, sure, it might take some time, but it's easy prep wise. And then I even in the book have risottos and polenta that can fully be frozen if you're willing to prep that in advance and then go to the sous vide bath. So
Nice. I love that concept. What's your favorite protein to food prep?
it's a good question. I mean, for me, so I like typically, right, lately I haven't been because I've been trying to finish this dang book, but I'm typically a pretty consistent weightlifter, and like protein is a big part of my diet, like getting in adequate amounts of protein. And so typically chicken breasts are like a staple. So that's just like something easy that I know, like I can pull from the freezer at the beginning of the week, sous vide, and then have ready for lunches throughout the week. So I love to do that. But as mentioned in the video, I also love flank steak, like love flank steak. So having batches of that in the freezer is great too. Like right now I've got fajita marinade, one in a fajita marinade, and then one in the everything marinade I demonstrated in the video. And it's just like nice to know that they're there.
My two big ones are turkey breast and chuck
Mm.
steak. Those are my two favorite ones to, do for lunches and stuff like that. Just have them on hand because they're both just so flavorful and they're not overly expensive.
Totally.
Russell says, "What are veggies? Does not compute." Says the guy that did the Wagyu beef presentation.
That's been me lately, like with this book, like because I've been making so much the past couple weeks. I've been photographing, so we have tons of protein around, and then like I'll make some quick rice or something like that, and I'm like, when was the last time I ate a freaking vegetable? Come on, Chelsea.
Mike wants to know, where do you get your amazing photo backdrops?
Oh, that's a great. So there, a lot of them are like actually behind me, because I'm shooting right now. But I get them from Capture by Lucy backdrops. She is amazing. So for the book, I actually did like a brand new custom set of backdrops, and they're all terrazzo, and it was really fun. And the woman who runs that shop, Lucy, is so sweet and wonderful, and she helped me with a bunch of custom backdrops. So highly recommend. They ship from Europe, but shockingly don't take that long to ship. And they're fantastic.
Well, Chelsea, we really appreciate you coming on, sharing your video. I'm looking forward to your book. It's coming out. Everyone, if you're interested in a good book for figuring out how to cook at home, how to make your life easy, but still eat great food, please pre-order that. Support the ISVA members with books. And we really appreciate you coming on and spending your time while you're in the middle of finishing cookbook hell. So thank you very much for making time for us.
Yes, thank you for having me.